Hello everyone, this is PK Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a review of the premiere episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Now there'll likely be spoilers for this review, so just beware when going into this overall video. Now She-Hulk Attorney at Law is overall the 7th Marvel superhero series on the Disney Plus platform after WANDAVISION, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, Hawkeye, Moon Knight and Miss Marvel. And you can check out my coverage of all of those shows, and I'll leave some links in the description. Now She-Hulk Attorney at Law centers around the famous comic book character created in 1980, focusing on Hulk, or Bruce Banner's cousin Jennifer Walters, who gains the Hulk gamma radiation through a blood transfusion carried out by Bruce in order to save her life after an accident. When she turns into the Hulk, she's not as powerful as Bruce, but she's able to have far more control of the powers and can transform more willingly into the Hulk persona, and she embraces the personality of the Hulk as it gives her far more self-esteem and confidence. More than that, Jennifer has to struggle her life from being an attorney lawyer alongside being a role of a superhero. And the series itself pretty much follows this template, as we spend the majority of the episode going through the origin of how Jen gets the gamma powers and trying to keep them under control. So as an opening episode, I'd say this was fine overall. It was very brisk and playful in its tone. Maybe it was a bit rushed at times. I think we could have spent a bit more time developing the overall origin of the character and going through the transition of how she masters her Hulk powers. But as we've known from the promotion of the series, we know that this will be far more of an upbeat comedic superhero entry within the MCU. So if that intention didn't endear you to the show, then this opening episode won't do anything to change your mind. Now in terms of the origin, I actually wasn't a fan of how they set up Jen getting the powers. They changed the development as what we saw from the source material. Here, instead of Bruce saving Jen through a blood transfusion, we see them driving together on a freeway and they get interrupted by a Sicarian spacecraft who apparently was wanting to deliver Bruce a message, which was a bit weird to be honest, and hopefully they explain that later on throughout the series. But it gets intercepted and they drive off a cliff, crashing together. And we see Bruce's cut and his blood leaks onto Jen's arm, and we see her transform instantly. And I just didn't like the way that this was handled. I think it was far too quick and choppy in terms of the way that it was edited. And I would have liked the first transformation of Jen to be far more impactful and stand out in the opening episode. We then had another very strange scene where Jen has recovered from the crash and she struggles to a bar and she's confronted with all of these women, all shoving all of these mobile phones in her face. And then later on she gets approached by some men, and then that's when she turns into She-Hulk once again. And as I mentioned before, it just felt a bit of a very erratic and uncoordinated start to but once Bruce gets Jen back to the lab and explains what's going on in terms of the transformations, then I think the episode got far better. We had a few reveals here where we learned that Bruce has been using a prototype device in order to help control his transformations. We also had a hint that there could perhaps be something special in the DNA of both Bruce and Jen, and that's why they're able to resist and control the gamma radiation. Now I think that they did this because they felt they had to have some sort of explanation as to why Bruce could somehow survive the gamma radiation and that anybody couldn't just master it in general. But I don't think this was necessary. I think we've known enough about the Hulk and indeed She-Hulk to practically go along with the fact that when they get infected with the gamma radiation, they learn to harness and develop its power. I don't think you need any kind of extra explanations or exposition, even if you are a hardcore comic book fan or just a general casual viewer. But as I said, I think the episode improved a lot more at this stage as we see Bruce beginning to train Jen, and I liked the interplay between the two characters, and I think both Tatiana Maslany and Mark Ruffalo had very good chemistry together throughout this episode. And as most expected, when she was cast in the lead role, Tatiana Maslany is very good here. She's very well spirited and likeable, and I think she'll perform very great throughout the entire series. So we then have to talk about She-Hulk herself. Now there's been a lot of criticism on the CGI rendition of the character, and I too myself had major issues with it when I saw the first trailer. Now when we saw the second trailer, she did look a lot better. I think they addressed a lot of the issues in terms of the movement and the contrast and colour of the character. And I feel in this first episode, whilst it wasn't seamless, the overall rendition was convincing enough. Yes, it was far more animated and photorealistic, but the quality was there enough that I could deal with it throughout this entire series, and I'm sure after a couple of episodes you'll just learn to adjust with the overall effect, but for now it's convincing enough. Now I liked all of the training sequences that we saw between the two Hulks when they're throwing boulders and learning to balance. We had a very funny scene when they both realise that one of the upsides of being a Hulk is that you can drink endlessly without getting drunk. This just highlighted the great banter and camaraderie between the two characters, and once again the chemistry between the two characters worked really well and was probably my favourite part of the episode. Now we do see the two eventually fight each other as what we typically get within these superhero stories, but it was far more played for laughs, and I think that was the right move. Now some will complain that there were perhaps some instances where Jen was one-upping Bruce, but that's not the case I felt when watching this, and you can see he's clearly holding back when training Jen overall. So any argument about feminism or woke agenda or the Hulk being emasculated are not really valid within this opening episode. So after this fight, we see that Jen eventually rejects Bruce's offer for more training, and she wants to go back to her normal life as a lawyer. And this sequence afterwards was probably the weakest part of the episode, where we see the main villain of the show, I assume, Titania, crashing into the courtroom. We don't know why yet, but we'll find out later on. And we see that Jen transforms into She-Hulk and defeats her so easily. Again, this was one of the signs that the episode was far too rushed and brisk, and it really wasn't that stand out in terms of a fight. To be honest, I would have rather this sequence not be involved at all, and would have preferred if we'd have just stuck to the overall training with Jen and Bruce, because I just didn't see the point in having this sequence thrown in right at the end of the particular episode. It was just over before it began and just didn't carry any weight to it. So I do hope that we get far more substantial fights involving She-Hulk later on down the series. So overall, this wasn't stellar superhero television, but I think it was light-hearted and harmless fun enough. We all know what we're going to get with this show, and I'm sure many have already had their minds made up before seeing this episode. If you are indeed into the more light-hearted comedic fun, then I'm sure you will enjoy the show. But if you're looking for something far more hardcore and serious, I don't think She-Hulk is going to provide this for you. And so far in terms of this opening episode, I'm not sure if this is going to be the best of the Marvel Disney Plus shows so far. I've made my feelings known that they have really struggled in terms of quality for all of the series, and I don't think She-Hulk is going to elevate to a higher standard, but it might overall turn out to be satisfactory entertainment. So we'll just have to see how well it goes over the next 8 episodes or so. It will be interesting to see how they integrate Daredevil. There are rumours that he will be far more of a humorous and light-hearted version. I really hope that's not the case, because that's going to annoy a lot of people who are major fans of the Netflix show. And I really hope we get far more better She-Hulk action and a substantial villain later on down the series, just to add some more weight amongst the much expected humour and quirkiness that we'll get in terms of the legal aspects of the show. So there's my overall thoughts and feelings and review of the opening episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Let me know what you think in the comments below. How would you think this opening episode compared to the other premiere episodes of the previous Marvel Disney Plus shows? Do you think this will go on to be one of the best of the shows so far, or do you think it will go on to be one of the worst? How were you feeling about the CGI rendition of She-Hulk? Do you think it's been much improved over the previous 2 trailers, or do you think they should have really reassessed how they went about this and included far more practical techniques in terms of representing and visualization the character? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And as usual, when I cover these shows, I will of course provide reviews of both the season finale and also the season overall, so look out for that further within the channel. And if you have any other shows on any streaming platform or television that you'd like to see me cover and review in the future, then let me know and I will see if I can provide more commentary for you within the channel at a later date. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification button so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. And that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.